I'm Mike Quackenbush. This is Till We Make It, and you know each and every time you take the stage that you need to exude confidence to the audience. But there can be tiny little details that perhaps evince we are a little less so. Today, let's talk about the ways in which our bodies betray our nervousness. I began teaching professional wrestling to others at the end of the 90s, and I have taught just about everywhere you can imagine. In the back room of black metal clubs in northern Germany, to right here at my wrestle factory, to the floor of the Performance Center for the WWE. And I have worked with day one beginners. I've also trained people who headline WrestleMania events. But something that's true of all performers, no matter what stage they take, is that they need to take the stage with confidence. Whether we're just starting out or we're developing as performers, there are all these tiny little ticks and nuances that can betray the fact that we are actually quite nervous. And of course, why wouldn't we be? Every time we walk out into a room filled with strangers in little more than our underwear and some body glitter, we probably have good reason to be nervous. Today, I want to zero in on a couple of these details so that when you watch your performances back, you may be able to identify small little details that betray your nervousness. One of these details that I feel occurs most commonly amongst rookies is having busy footwork, taking too many steps for what the occasion requires. And this might be when they're chain wrestling at the beginning of a match. This might be when they're handed the microphone and asked to cut a promo. And it extends even beyond rookie professional wrestlers. The same is true of an interviewer. The same could be true of a ring announcer. What they need to do is plant their feet and to take as few steps as possible to accomplish whatever the goal might be, keeping in mind that the goal might be to apply a wrist lock. The goal might be to escape from a waist lock. The goal might be to body slam the opponent. Or the goal might be to cut a promo that equally services the hard camera and the roving camera. But whatever it is that particular task requires of you, do it with the least number of steps possible. Or to phrase it a different way, have no wasted movement. And I bet just from watching me move around like this, you can get an exact sense of why it makes the performer seem nervous. It seems like I've either got to go to the bathroom or I've got ants in my pants. It seems as if I am nervous when I'm on stage until my body language begins to settle. And then it appears to the audience as if I am more comfortable. But we've got to be more than comfortable when we perform. We have to be confident. So plant your feet and stand still as much as possible. When you must move, make sure you minimize that movement so that you have no wasted motion. A second thing about the way that we appear on stage that can betray the fact that you are nervous is that your eyes don't fixate on any one point for more than a split second at a time. They flit about in a very nervous manner, not unlike watching a fly buzz around somebody's head. But when we are able to make eye contact, and hold eye contact and do so comfortably without feeling like it's weird or unusual, it conveys to the receiver the idea that we are confident. So when we perform, that might mean that we need to feel comfortable holding eye contact with our opponent. If we're receiving information from the referee, we must be willing to make eye contact with the referee. If you're going to choose to acknowledge something, a heckle or comment that you hear from the audience, don't be afraid to hold that eye contact with whomever is speaking to you at that moment so that they know at all times who is actually commanding the stage. Even if they're not performers whose eyes flit about constantly or performers who refuse to make eye contact look as if they are nervous, even if that behavior, for whatever reason, actually makes them feel comfortable. But the trick is also to get the audience to believe that you are confident, and the audience will interpret that lack of eye contact or rapid eye movement as nervousness. One other overt thing that betrays nervousness to the audience is when we second guess our movements. We act as if we're about to reach for our opponent, and then we recoil, we go back into our heads and try to remember what's next. Then maybe we go for it again, and this time we decide to pick up our opponent and then move on to the next movement. Before you put something on stage, even if it is as simple as reaching out to grab your opponent and lift them up for the next move, you've got to move with certainty. Commit 100% to the movement that you are about to make. Anytime the audience can see us second-guessing the next move we're about to make, it betrays the fact that we aren't very confident about what we're performing. One last thing I'd like to bring up, which is less overt but equally important, and it's especially relevant when we perform in intimate venues, not in giant 75,000-seat arenas, but in those types of arenas or venues where, with a little bit of patience, you'd actually be able to make eye contact with every single customer in the house. You cannot ignore what's happening inside the venue. Here's an example. If all the lights above the ring just happen to go out, and you keep on performing as if nothing has changed, it tells the audience that you are really locked inside your head. And you get locked in your head, lost in your own thoughts, when you're not confident about being on stage. It takes you from being extroverted, which is what we must be when we perform and emote for live fans, and makes it seem as if you are introverted. I happen to think if you're in one of those situations and someone throws a Milky Way bar at your head, you've got to acknowledge that a Milky Way just came flying at your forehead. If you're in one of those situations and glass is dropped outside the ring and everybody in the audience can hear that happened, you've got to take a moment to acknowledge we're all here, we're in the space, we all know that happened, and now let's get back to the performance. If we gloss past the things that are happening in and around us, it does create the feeling that we are so nervous we can't even pause for a second to acknowledge the reality outside the ring. A little while back, I created a video about how you can self-critique your own matches. In fact, I will link to it above in case you want to jump over there and check that out. In brief, I talk about watching your matches back 3 times, and one of those passes through the past performance is meant to allow you to drill into specifically performative elements. I want to challenge you in this way. The next time you go back watching for the performative elements, drill into the things we talked about in this exact video. Are there things about your body language that betray your nervousness? When you watch your matches back, are they possessed of busy footwork? Are you constantly shifting and shuffling around when all you really need to do is put on a full Nelson? If you feel like it's possessed of a lot of wasted movement, then you know you need to plant your feet, and that's an area of improvement that you can drill into. And what about eye contact? Are you willing to comfortably hold eye contact, whether it's with your opponent, someone interviewing you, a referee, or a member of the audience that you happen to be interacting with? Or do your eyes flit around as if you're trying to speed read your own Twitter feed? That too might be an area for improvement. And does it seem as if you are second-guessing the movements that you're about to make in the ring? If so, commit fully to the movement before you initiate it. That way, it appears to the audience as if you are always confident and in full command of the stage. If a deeper exploration of the performative elements of professional wrestling are just the thing you need to get your career to the next level, then by all means, check out my book, 7 Keys to Becoming a Better Performer. Print and digital copies can be had through Amazon.com, while over at Audible.com is the audiobook that I will read to you myself. And I don't doubt you will find tons of useful information in there so that your performance is elevated the very next time you step between the ropes.